Assalamu alaikum. Welcome my dear students again to your English classes with your teacher Dania Hassan. In this video we're going to have language focus 2 in your student book pages 89 and 106 and page 80 in your workbook. Our objectives today are, first of all, we're going to learn the past simple passive and learn past simple passive question forms. Now you need to open your student book page 89. The title of our lesson is Past Simple Passive. Here in the first exercise we have to complete the examples from the listening on page 88. Let's start with the first sentence. The Eco House was built in 1985. Several changes were made to the house. A lot of rubbish wasn't recycled, and the lights were not switched off for a week. Whereby the Eco House was designed by the museum. Now we have to move to page 106 to talk in details about our rule or our lesson. Here, as you can see, we have table with affirmative, negative, and interrogative forms of the past simple passive. As you can see, we have two examples for each form. The rubbish was thrown away, and the old chairs were thrown away. In the negative form, we use wasn't or weren't. Like the rubbish wasn't thrown away, the old chairs weren't thrown away. In interrogative form, we have to put was or were at first. So, was the rubbish thrown away or were the old chairs thrown away? Here the answer must be yes or no, or short answers. Yes, it was, or no, it wasn't. Or no, they weren't. Let's start with the points. The first point is we use the past simple passive to describe processes in the past. So we use the past simple passive when we don't know or not interested in who did the process or this activity or who was responsible for this action. Like last year, a trip to Italy was organized at the end of term. Here we used was because a trip is singular. The other example is the competition winners were given books. Winners, plural, so we used were. Next point is to form the past simple passive we use was or were or wasn't or weren't plus past participle. Like the first Disney film was made in 1937. Disney film is singular, so we used was. And here the past participle is made from make. Some of us weren't invited to the party. Weren't, here we used weren't because we have plural, which is the pronoun us, or some of us. Invited is the past participle. It's regular verb from invite. To form questions, we use was or were plus subject plus past participle. When we have WH questions or WH words, we have to put them before was or were. Like, were the instructions written in English? Here the answer is short or must be short, like yes, they were, or no, they weren't. Instructions, plural, so we used were. How much money was taken from her bag? This question needs full answer. And in which country was the telephone invented? This question is also needs full answer. When we can use by, we use by with the passive to show who was responsible for the actions. A lot of houses were destroyed. Destroyed by the fire. The fire was the responsible for this action or for the destruction. Who was the song Tell Me a Lie recorded by? I think it was recorded by One Direction. So we use by to show who was the responsible for the actions. Now please move back to page 89 to pass it through the exercises. Let's start with exercise number 2. Complete the sentences. Use the past simple passive form of the verbs in brackets. Number 1. The Eco House was completed in 1985. House or the Eco House is singular, so we used was plus past participle completed from complete. It was built on a large piece of land. Number 3. A lot of energy. Energy is uncountable noun, so we have to use was saved by turning down the temperature. Number 4. The kitchen was redesigned 2 years ago. Number 5. A lot of changes were made to the house. Finally, the old fridge and washing machine weren't thrown away. Let's move to the next exercise. Here we have to write the active sentences below using the past passive and by. We have an example. Companies first used plastic bottles in 1947. So the object here is the plastic bottles. We have to put it at first in the passive sentence. So plastic bottles were, we used were because bottles, a plural noun, were first used in 1947. Number 2, they finished the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai in 1999. So the object here is the Burj Al Arab Hotel. So Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai was finished in 1999. Number 3, the Chinese invented paper almost 2,000 years ago. Paper is the object, so paper was invented almost 2,000 years ago by the Chinese. Number 4, Europeans threw out about 100 million mobile phones last year. The object here is about 100 million mobile phones were thrown away or thrown out last year by Europeans. Number 5, Swiss people recycled 96% of glass bottles in 2012. The object here is 96% of glass bottles were recycled in 2012 by Swiss people. Number 6, the last one, John Dunlop made the first rubber tire for his son's bicycle. So the first rubber tire is the object. So the first rubber tire was made by John Dunlop for his son's bicycle. Now let's move to the next. Here we have to complete the conversation with the correct form of the past simple passive. Then we have to listen and check. Let's start with the first one. First question, Don Quixote by Shakespeare. Don Quixote is a novel. So was Don Quixote written? Here the verb is right. So written, the past participle of right, by Shakespeare. No, it wasn't. It was Cervantes. So was written, wasn't, was written. Question 2. Was the first modern Olympic Games or were the first modern Olympic Games held in Greece? Held is the past participle of hold. So were and held in Greece? No, they weren't. They were in London. Or they were held in London. No, it was Athens. Okay, the last question again, it's very easy. Who was Harry Potter played by? He played by Daniel Radcliffe. Let's listen and check.
CD 2, track 41. Listen and check.
Hey, shall we do this general knowledge quiz?
Okay, but I'm not very good.
Okay. First question. Was Don Quixote written by Shakespeare?
That's easy. No, it wasn't. It was written by Cervantes.
Good. Question 2. Were the first modern Olympic Games held in Greece?
No, they weren't. They were held in London.
No. It was Athens. Okay. The last question. Again, it's very easy. Who was Harry Potter played by?
I know that one. He was played by Daniel Radcliffe. Easy.
Now please move quickly to page 80 in your workbook. Let's start with the first exercise. Here we have to complete the sentences with the past simple passive add by where necessary. Number 1, in ancient China, windows were made of paper because they didn't have glass. Number 2, cave paintings show that leather clothing, here the verb is wear, leather clothing, so was worn by people who lived 12,000 years ago. Number 3, the World Wide Web was or wasn't developed until the 1990s. Number 4, the first rubber boots were produced in France in 1853. You have to complete the rest as the same way. Now please move to the next. Write past simple passive questions about these important discoveries. Then match the questions with the answers. Number 1, when X-rays discovered. So when were X-rays discovered? With C, in 1895. Number 2, who? Penicillin discovered by 1928. So who was penicillin discovered by in 1928? Next, question number 3, what discovered Alfred Nobel 1866? So what was discovered by Alfred Nobel? Number 4, what was developed by Michael Faraday in 1821? You have to complete the rest questions as the same way. Now let's move to match the answers. Number 2, the answer is with F. Number 3 with A, and number 4 with G. Here we have to complete the text with the past simple form of the verbs in brackets, passive or active. Number 1, who was Greenpeace set up by? No one's really sure. Lots of people contributed. When and where was Greenpeace started? In Canada in 1971, but it wasn't called Greenpeace at first. A group of activists went to protest against an underground nuclear explosion in Alaska. Their boat was stopped and the nuclear test wasn't prevented. But because of the campaign, a few months later, all nuclear activity at the island was ended by the US government. That was the beginning of Greenpeace. When was the Greenpeace internationally created? You have to complete 8 and 9 and 10 as the same way. Finally, we have to complete these sentences with the correct form of the verbs. Number 1, a lot of trees were cut down to make a way to the new road. Number 2, I couldn't do it at first or in the first, but I kept on trying and learned. Number 3, they have put up a lot of houses in this street since we moved here. 4, if we plant trees around our house, it will bring down the